Good morning and welcome to Worldwide Wisdom. It's a new year. It's a new beginning. We're starting the Torah all over again. A little hoarse, a little hungover, but it is the day after Simchas Torah. We're starting the Torah all over again. And it's incredible when you start the Torah on Breishis. For starters, I want you to know that the Torah is not just something you're doing again, but the Torah is like a staircase. That even though you're at the same point that you were last year, but you're moving upwards. So your interpretation is deeper, broader, higher, more inspired than it was last year. Last year you were understanding things that were simple compared to where you stand today. And that's how you're supposed to view the cycle of Torah, as a continuous cycle. And I want to give an example of that. So the very, very first words in the Torah tell us about the eternal claim, the unbreakable ownership of the Jewish people to the land of Israel. The very first words. Let's take a look at how this appears in the Torah. If you open your book, Parshas Breishis, Elohim hashamayim v'haaretz, in the beginning of God's creation of the heavens and the earth. I want you to go to middle of page 2. Right in the middle, you'll see a translation of Rashi. 2. Right in the middle of page 2. There's a translation of the very first Rashi, which I want you to see. Right in the middle, you see what it says Rashi, the question, why does the Torah begin with the creation of the world? Middle of page 2. So you see this is Rashi. Rabbi Yitzchak said, surely the Torah should have begun from the words, this month shall be for you, which is in Exodus chapter 12, verse 2. The first commandment, which the Jewish people were given. Why is the Torah not beginning with the very first commandment given to us in the middle of the book of Exodus? This is the mitzvah of time, the mitzvah of the Jewish calendar. Why does it begin with in the beginning? Why does the Torah start with a bunch of stories? Adam and Eve, the snake, tree of knowledge, Abraham and Sarah. Why do we need these stories? This is the question posed by Rabbi Yitzchak 1,700 years ago in the Talmud. The reason, now Rashi writes this 900 years ago. The reason is conveyed by the verse from Psalms. He declared to his people the power of his works in order to give them the inheritance of the nations. So God is telling us of his power in order that we can have ownership of the land of Israel. I.e., if the nations of the world will say to the Jewish people, you are robbers, for you seized the land of the 7 nations who inhabited Canaan. If the nations of the world accuse us of stealing their land, have you ever heard of such a thing?
Never.
Can you imagine? Rashi's writing this 900 years ago, quoting Rabbi Yitzchak from 1,700 years ago. You look at this and you realize it's prophecy here. They envisioned the United Nations. I'm just waiting for President Trump to declare United Nations a terrorist organization, which they really are. They're a bunch of bullies. They're not a league of democracies. They're a league of dictatorships.
Montgomery said he would arrest Netanyahu.
Right. No surprises.
He said that several times.
So back to the Rashi, folks. This is the first Rashi in Torah. First Rashi in Torah. So if the nations accuse the Jewish people of having stolen the land of Israel, they will reply, the Jewish people will reply the following. Now that we know the strength of God's actions, we have claim to the land. The whole earth belongs to God. He created it and granted it to whomever was deemed fit in his eyes. It was his will that they should have it, the nations, and by his will he took it from them and gave it to us. That's a very, very important Rashi. Now, the way we've learned this Rashi so far, until now, in a way which is, we're going to upgrade it now. But so far, the way we've learned it is like this. We've learned it to mean that the reason why the Torah, the first book and a half of the Torah, goes through all the narratives of creation from Adam and Eve, all the way through to Moses, which would have been, Moses received the Torah in the year 2448 after Adam and Eve, after creation. So the first 2448 years of the Torah is documented only in order that we in 2025 should have the gumption and the strength to stand up to the nations of the world, to stand up to your neighbor and to your colleague at work and your Facebook friend, your brother-in-law, your uncle that says that Israel are colonizers, so that we should have the strength to be able to respond and say today, no, we're not colonizers. How can we be colonizers in the land of Israel? Israel, remember, it's Israel. God created the world. He gave the land of Israel to us. It's our land. In other words, if you say that we're colonizers, then it's a rejection of the Bible. If we are going to claim claim the land of Israel, it means we have to embrace the Bible. We have to embrace God. You can't be a secular Jew and also say that we're not colonizers. It doesn't work. You've got to be an observant Jew, valuing the Torah. At the same time, you can then lay claim to the land of Israel. Quick example. Rabbi Lau, the chief rabbi of Israel, was a famous survivor of Buchenwald. He's the former chief rabbi of Israel. I think his son is the Ashkenazi chief rabbi now. So Rabbi Yisrael Meir Lau once went to visit David Ben Gurion in his yeshuv, Sde Boker, in the Negev. And he asked him a question. Is it true that when you stood before the Peel Commission in the 1930s, before the British inquiry, they were trying to figure out who the land of Israel belongs to, the Arabs or the Jews. And the Arabs made all their claims. And then you stood up and you declared, you pulled out the Bible. Is it true that you pulled out the Bible and you declared that by virtue of the Bible, this is our land? He says, yeah, emet v'yatzif. Yes. So then Rabbi Lau said to him, imagine if you had a claim to your house, a deed to your house, but it was shredded, and it was covered in feces, and it was buried under a dung heap in your backyard. And when somebody laid claim to your house, you pull out this rat-infested document, which is barely legible, and you say, here's my title deed. Would somebody believe you?
No.
Said Rabbi Lau to David Ben Gurion, who by then was a very old man. He said to him, if this is our title deed, the Torah, then why do you treat it like garbage? You can't have it both ways. You can't reject God, reject Shabbos, reject tefillin, reject kosher, reject the chosenness of our people, reject the Jewish holidays, and say, oh, by the way, the Bible says. It doesn't work like that, right? So this is how we've learned it so far until now. But today I'd like to upgrade our understanding of this Rashi. I'd like to take it to the next level by asking a very simple question. Why is it that we need to even answer this question? That the nations of the land will say we stole the land. Is there any country in the world that wasn't conquered? I mean, let's talk about the Americans. I was talking to my kids yesterday about who discovered America. And one of my kids was asked a question in school. He was asked who America is named after. So he left it blank. So when the teacher marked him 0 on that question, he complained to the teacher. Why did you give me a 0 on that question? So he said, because the teacher said, because you didn't write the answer. So he said, what's the answer? So he says, the teacher said to my son, Amerigo Vespucci. So my son said, America's not named after Amerigo Vespucci. What are you talking about? Said the teacher. If it was named after Amerigo Vespucci, America would be called Amerigo Vespucci. It's not. It's called America, so it's not named after anybody. The teacher gave him the marks. So we were talking about it, and one of my other sons said to me, we were talking about, I said that because someone said Columbus, and I said, no, Amerigo Vespucci discovered America before Columbus. So then another son said, what do you mean? The Indians were here first. And I'm like, right, they're people too. Indians are people too. Like, how do we say? You're not supposed to say Indians anymore. What, a Native Americans? Right. How could we say that Amerigo Vespucci discovered America? That's a disgraceful insult to the people that were already living here. I mean, there were actually people living here. They weren't monkeys, they weren't orangutans, they were human beings. And we said, no, Amerigo Vespucci discovered America. Thank you very much. It's all right. My son said it. The Native Americans are here first. And I say, he's right. Right? So America is a country that's conquered. Right? France is a country. Every country in Europe is conquered. Multiple times. The Vikings, the Goths, who are the Byzantines. Right? Every country has been conquered. Why is it that the Jewish people suddenly need to answer this question. Imagine if the French needed to answer this question. You stole the land from somebody, right? Or the Spaniards, right? They conquered the land from somebody. Every country in the world is conquered. So why is it that only the Jews need to answer this question?
Because there's such hatred for people being Jews, it's natural.
So you're suggesting that it's anti-Semitism, that the anti-Semites cannot bear the notion that the Jew actually has a home. Okay. But why is the Jew so insecure that he feels the need to answer this question? Imagine somebody came over to you and said, why did you kill your grandmother? What would you say to that person? Would you say, well, actually, when do you think, what date was it? What time was it? Let me check with my schedule to make sure. Would you answer like that, or would you say, you're an idiot? You know what I mean? Like, when somebody asks you a preposterous question, you don't start negotiating with them, right? You say, that's ridiculous, and I don't need to engage with you, right? So why is it that we even feel the need to answer this question? Why is it that Rashi, Rabbi Yitzchak, the Torah, feels important to answer this question? There's got to be more to this question than mere absurdity and hatred.
Because I think they foretold that the nations of the world are going to eventually say, how'd you get there?
So that's what we've learned so far. Until now, we've learned this far, and it's a beautiful answer. And I think, Harvey, that we're struggling with applying that exact truth to our current reality. Can you imagine if we all decided today, Shalom from Turkey and Prima from Australia and a friend from England here. Imagine if we all decided that from today, we're going on an unapologetic campaign on social media. Anybody who claims that Jews are colonizers, we quote Genesis 1:1. You know how the Christians, they have like John 3:14 or something, whatever that is. I don't know what that is. But imagine if we went down and we just went on a Genesis 1:1 campaign. Genesis 1:1. First of all, the Christians would love it. Christians would have a field day. They'd love it. Imagine if we all decided from today on, Genesis 1:1 is the answer. Right? Wouldn't that be amazing? And even the Jews would be like, what's that?
What does that mean?
Right? And you start educating them, right? And you get the football players to put it under their eye makeup, right?
So from our very existence, we've been defending ourselves. So isn't it just natural that we have a sense that we have to defend our right to the land?
Yeah, but that's in our
DNA.
That's an exile mentality, Chuck. It's an exile mentality that we're constantly playing defense. It's time for us to go on offense.
It's the first rule of negotiation, which is once you put something out on the table,
You
you
can't.
offer, you can't take it back.
It's weakness.
So once we said we'll start to negotiate the borders, whatever.
We'll give you back the land.
Yeah.
You lost it right there.
That's it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You cannot do
Right.
that.
Remember, a guy breaks into your house with a machine gun, right? Kills some of your kids,
Don't do
right?
them all.
And then you manage to drive him out. And then he comes to say, why did you steal my machine gun? And you say, actually, I'll give it back to you. You just lost everything, right? Right? You just lost everything. So I just want to say that until now, we've learned, and we're still struggling with it, but let's go on a Genesis 1:1 campaign. A friend from Atlanta as well, right? Let's go for it. Genesis 1:1 from today on. Let's post it on social media. Let's get it out there. Let's make bumper stickers. Genesis 1:1. But let's take it to the next level today. Let's take it to the next level. The next level is like this. The next level is where the Rebbe explains, what is it that the Gentiles are saying? What is it that they're saying, you have stolen the land from us? What they mean is, the Rebbe explains. And don't forget, by the way, God did create the world, right? And when the land was divided, the land of Israel was placed into the territory of Shem, of Sem. Semites, right? It was placed into the territory of Shem, and he was an ancestor of Abraham. So the Gentiles' claim is like this. It's deeper. They also understand that every nation conquers, and the victor writes the rules, right? They understand that lands are subject, that real estate is subject to territorial conquest. But their problem is that the land that the Jewish people conquered can never again be conquered. Every other piece of real estate in the world can be conquered today and then conquered again the next day, right? So Crimea could be Ukraine one day, the next day it could be Russia, and then maybe again it goes back to Ukraine. But when it comes to the land of Israel, the complaint of the Gentiles is that you've ruined it for us, because the minute that you conquered this land, you've made it holy. And once you've made it holy, it can no longer return back to its mundane status. And this is why the land of Israel is different to the other nations, to the other lands of the world. Even after we were exiled from the land of Israel, and we were wandering in the exile of the Romans for 1900 years, nevertheless, the land was always called the Holy Land, because the land has been sanctified as an eternal dwelling place for God Almighty, the site of the Holy Temple built by King Solomon. Subsequently, the second temple that was built by the returnees from Babylon and Persia, Ezra and Nehemiah, and thereon to Raj. When the nations of the land sense that the land is no longer able to return to its mundane status, no longer is this land able to, it's not subject to the rules of other lands. And I want to prove it to you for a second. You know, there's extraordinary qualities of the land of Israel. For example, have you noticed that there's a promise in Torah that says that as long as the Jewish people live in the land of Israel, the land will prosper. But when they're not there, it will just vomit out its inhabitants. It become desolate, right? When Mark Twain was in Israel in the 19th century, it was like 18th century maybe. He said, no, in 19th, right? He said, this is like a marshland. Why would any mosquito-infested, grave of the white man? Why would anybody want to live here, right? When the Jewish people left Gaza in that awful, tragic, terrible mistake, the place turned into just a hellhole. And you go to the Gaza border today, you see rows of greenery on the Israeli side and just blackness and brownness and gray on the Gaza side. It's an amazing differentiation, right? The land spits out its inhabitants when they're not Jewish people. Another thing, it says that the land of Israel is called the land of the deer, D-E-E-R, deer. Why is it called the land of the deer? Because just like a deer's skin fits the deer when the deer is inside of it, but when the deer skin is removed from the deer, it shrivels to a size that is ridiculously small. So to the land of Israel, when the Jewish people are in it, it expands to accommodate them all. But when they're not in it, then it shrivels to become inhospitable to anybody else. So these are extraordinary miracles. I mean, you even look at the miracles of the land of Israel. Had the American Department of Defense or Department of War, whatever they call themselves now. They don't even study the wars of Israel because they don't make sense. They don't make logical sense because there's so many miracles. There's open miracles, like even David Ben Gurion, and he wasn't famous for being an observant Jew. He said in Israel, to be a realist, you must believe in miracles. And this is the claim of the nations of the world. They say that why have you ruined our world? I'm just going to finish this point there. Why have you ruined our world? Because no longer are we able to live in your land like we do in all other lands. This is different. Why do you think you're different? And the answer of the Jewish people, in other words, it's not a political accusation, as we've learned until now. We're going deeper. Now it's a spiritual accusation. Why have you messed this up for us? That we feel less than. We feel now less than because we can't experience what you experienced in the land of Israel. And to this we answer that this was the intention and the plan of the master designer of the world. His intention was that he created this world. First of all, he created it and he gave it to whom he found fit in his eyes, to the Canaanites. First he created it, then he gave it to the Canaanites. But then he took it from them and he gave it to us because this is our purpose in this world. Our purpose in this world is in order to sanctify this world, to infuse holiness into this world. And yes, we are different as Jews. This is another argument for anti-Semitism, by the way, is that why we have to be different. Because we eat different, we do business different, we dress different, we speak different, we marry different, we do everything different. Because this is our mandate, this is our mission statement, is to sanctify this physical world and to make it holy. What that does is that it causes the Gentiles to feel less than, right? And that's their accusation, which actually does hold water. They're like, who do you think you are? And it's here that we need to stand up and have the gumption, muster the mettle, to be able to say, yes, we're different because we were chosen for this mission. And by the way, so are you. You also are chosen for a mission. This is our job as light unto the nations, is to allow the nations of the world to realize that they have a purpose in this world. They're not just props on the sets, but they also have to nurture a relationship with God Almighty. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I was in Israel, there's an area in Israel. I remember there's people are going to they go into the water and they kind of they go underneath and I guess the Catholics consider that a holy place. They dunk in the water.
They get baptized.
So it's called
Baptized,
baptism.
yeah. So I was just wondering what maybe that's why they make the claim they're being baptized in Israel in that land.
Look, I'm not an expert in Christianity.
Uh-huh.
But that sounds like the mikveh.
I think
I mean, that's where they came from.
yeah, I think you might be talking about maybe the Jordan River. I've seen them do that over there. I think I've seen them do it over there. Honestly, I have no comment as to why they're dipping in the water. I mean, this is a mitzvah in the Torah.
I think really that the early Christians, right, it's the Jews.
Yeah.
And it's really the mikveh. I mean, that's where they took that same concept with dipping and, you know.
Honestly, Mark, I have no comment. That's not, you're asking the wrong person this question. I don't even know what the question is. Anyway, but back to closing points over here. I want to just say in closing that as we begin a new year, we're not just starting a tired old Torah again. You're not just reading another book. Imagine reading, Huckleberry Finn or Hostage by Elisha Rabbi for the 50th time. It's going to be painful. When you're studying the Torah, it's not about
Words,
the finite wisdom. It's about the infinite depth of God's Torah. And what we need to gather on the very beginning of the Torah now is the sense of security and self-esteem, to infuse our faith, to deepen our faith, to say God created the world. He's the master of the world. Maybe 2 years ago, 5 years ago, you weren't sure if you believed in God. And maybe now you've come a lot further. Now I know this is a God. But now I'm getting to know this God on a personal level. Okay, so God created everything. And God chose the land of Israel. God chose me, my ancestors, all the way to Adam and Eve and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob through the 12 tribes. When I can strengthen my sense of self-esteem to recognize and realize that I am God's chosen, I recognize that I have an awesome responsibility, not a privilege to scorn others with, but rather an awesome responsibility which I have to take extremely seriously. Like Adam is confronted by God in yesterday's Torah portion, and God says to him, I gave you a job. Ayeka, where are you? I gave you a job, one job. Don't eat from the one tree. Ayeka, where are you? Now, God set us up for failure. Admittedly, we're not throwing Adam under the bus. But at the same time, God is asking us today in 2025, Ayeka, do you have the guts to stand up to the nations of the world, political accusations, and to say Genesis 1:1, the Torah is my title deed? And on a deeper level, do you have the ability to respond to the Gentiles' spiritual claim that yes, we're here to infuse holiness into this world? And you can join the revolution. That is where we have to take it in 5786.
Rabbi, that to me is just the first half of the argument. That God created the world and he had the deed. But every deed requires a detailed description of what it is that's being deeded. And in numerous places in the Torah, in fact, I was moved yesterday that in the Haftorah, on Simchas Torah, it says, your borders, this is God telling
Joshua.
He's telling Joshua, your borders will be from the desert and Lebanon here to the great river, the Euphrates River, all the land of the Hittites, to the great sea, to the direction where the sun sets. So that's the description. And there's other places in Deuteronomy where they give, so our argument has to be not only did God give us the land, but he described it specifically. And as a matter of fact, we're being very kind in just wanting the Judea and Samaria and Gaza, because really we could demand
Jordan, Syria,
exactly
Iraq.
And the river to the sea.
and right. So
Isn't that the great irony that from the river to the sea is what the Bible defines as the borders of Israel,
yeah,
from the Euphrates River
yeah,
to the Mediterranean Sea?
exactly.
I mean,
And that should be
elsewhere it says Nile River to Euphrates River.
and all religions, Christianity and even the Muslim religion,
Except the Bible.
accept the Bible. So you can't accept the
Wait,
Bible
wait, did the
and not
Muslims-
accept the fact
Do the
that
Muslims,
God gave the land and he described the land. So
do the Muslims
So having
accept the
said all
Bible
of
and the
that,
Quran?
you and us should be very unhappy with where, I don't want to get political, but where this peace plan
Totally.
has brought us.
Absolutely unhappy.
Because what it is it's giving away land that belongs to
100%.
Jewish people.
Let me be clear. And I
So-
spoke about this in Simchas Torah. I said we're joyous that the 20 hostages were released. Of course, we're dancing with joy for that. But are we happy about some sort of a deal now that will not allow us to continue the war to eliminate Hamas? That we have this thorn in our side that's now going to undoubtedly begin to plan the next October 7th, God forbid?
No, forget Hamas. The fact that we are now giving up, and like I said before, in negotiation, once you give
Put it on the
up,
table,
you
yeah.
cannot bring it back.
What are we giving
Then
up?
there-
I'm not familiar.
Gaza.
Oh, we are giving up Gaza?
We're giving up Gaza.
Yeah, we're not done yet.
giving up.
I'm not intimately familiar with the details. But I just think that the negotiating stance, and this is where I agree with you 100%, the negotiating stance should be like Israel's opposition leader said to Trump in the Knesset. When he spoke in the Knesset, it was amazing. Israel's opposition leader is a very secular Jew. His father was notorious like to be an atheist. So he gets up and he says, listen, in front of the world, President Trump, he says, the Bible is not the end of our story. It's not the end of our claim to the land of Israel. The Bible is the beginning of our claim. And he says the greatest intelligence secrets of Israel's geopolitical ambitions are contained within the verse of the Torah that says, to you and your descendants, I have given this land as an eternal inheritance. Right? And when we now are being forced by the war of October 7th to reflect inwards, to reflect on our own values, we're being forced, even Israel's opposition leaders being forced to go back into the roots and ask ourselves a tough question. So why are we here? We realize that we have no choice but to turn to our Bible. And like I said at the beginning of the story here, I said, if you're going to trash your title deed, it's going to be worthless. We must embrace that title deed. We have no other choice. And then to walk into negotiations with that. For Israel to walk into an American negotiation and to say, yeah, we'll do whatever you tell us, that's pathetically weak.
Yep.
We have to say, no, we're not going to apologize for existing. We're not going to apologize for bringing our boys and girls home. We're not going to apologize for wiping out our enemy. I think the first thing Israel needs to do today is to institute the death penalty.
Yep.
First thing, they have to execute every terrorist that's convicted of terrorism. There should be no bargaining chips anymore. There should be no incentive for terrorists to take hostages.
Right.
You can't get these hostages. You can't get these terrorists back. Why are we feeding them? Why are we educating them? You were trying to kill yourself, right? So why are we stopping you? Sinwar was arrested in Israel for a terrorist attack years ago. He had brain cancer. Israel saved his life. And then he went on with the Hebrew that he learned to plan October 7th. What are we doing here? It's absolutely insane. It's ridiculous because we lack the courage of our convictions. If we've learned one thing from this war, it's that we have to lean inwards, not outwards. Our strength comes not from the United Nations, which sadly it has for many, many generations of Israeli political leadership. Our strength comes from God Almighty. And it's only when we can accept that, we can stand up to the world and the world can say, wow, Israel is finally grown up. Mazel tov in your bar mitzvah.
Israel is the most powerful nation in the whole Middle East.
Right. Israel's got to be a superpower. And you want to know the plan for the day after? The plan for the day after the war needs to be as follows. Israel's a superpower in the world. You talk to us with awe and respect.
Yep.
You're lucky if we agree to make a deal with you,
Blow you out.
right? We dominate. We dominate the tech industry. We dominate the innovation industry, the science and chemistry, medical industry. We dominate the military industry. You want to do business with us? Consider it a privilege, right? We're not coming with Jews of weak knees to say thank you for agreeing to respect us. This has got to be the approach. The world respects a strong Israel. The world scorns a weak Israel.
Then why are we agreeing with the United States demand to stop the settlements in Judea?
Are we agreeing to that? I'm not up to date with the news, by the way. I'm just letting you know. I think it's a disgrace. And by the way, I want to tell you, people criticize me sometimes. People criticize, Rabbi, how can you not be an avowed Zionist? As if there's some sort of sacrosanct to the Knesset or to Israel's political leadership. They're pathetic. They're pathetic. They're a disgrace in many ways to our values as Jews, right? And if they're giving up, if they're risking the lives of Jewish people by agreeing to dangerous deals in violation of Torah, right? In violation of Torah values, then this is not anything we stand for. That's why I say we've got a very complex approach to this deal. We're thrilled that the hostages came home, but we're heartbroken, we're crestfallen that we're agreeing to tie our hands behind our backs. How are we supposed to fight like that?
Now we have nothing to.
I'm not sure what we agreed to. I have to be honest with you. I don't know yet. All the Jewish holidays have been way too much to follow. I've not been able to follow all the details. I don't know. I can't comment. But I want to say that if we in fact have agreed to maybe relinquish ownership of certain parts of the state of Israel, of the land of Israel, and thus jeopardize the lives of Jews who are living in those areas, I think it's an absolute disgrace.
Well, I think the Torah gives us a life estate, and it gives our great.
And we say, no, we don't want it.
Generations
Exactly.
later have the remainder. I don't think we have the right to deed that away.
Exactly.
We have a life estate. We can only use it while we're here, and the next generation inherits it. And
Yes.
it's
And
forever.
take it down.
So
When the Allies freed the Holocaust, the concentration
Very good
camps,
example.
General Eisenhower said, "Before we take this apart, let's take 1,000,000,000 pictures because one day the
The world won't
gonna
believe it.
deny
I want to ask you a question. Imagine if the Allies made a prisoner exchange with the Nazis. They said, we're going to end the war, but we're going to take the Auschwitz and you're going to get our POWs, your POWs, right? Imagine we did that with the Japanese. What an insult that the Allies understood that it was unconditional surrender. That's it. And the 915 soldiers who gave up their lives so that we could come this far are being disrespected.
Yeah.
They're being disrespected because their supreme sacrifices are now being erased. They're in vain. We need, only Israel is not allowed to win a war. It's shameful. And the reason is because we let the nations dictate to us, because we're not strong enough. We don't believe in ourselves. And the time has come for us to stand up for ourselves.
Mordechai before, if somebody came and said to him that you could, I'm tired of having to defend ourselves. We don't need to defend the whole world because no matter what we do, no matter what proof we have, they're never going to accept us. Never. Where I feel
right. So we talk about the death penalty. You know why Israel doesn't have a death penalty? So that the world shouldn't accuse us of being mean. I think that ship sailed a very, very long time ago.
I feel the energy that we should spend is within ourselves. Every Jew needs to come together. We should speak up as a.
That's where it starts. It starts right here.
And that we
right. It doesn't start in the Knesset. It starts right here. When Bibi Netanyahu hears, and by the strength to Bibi for not going to Sharm el-Sheikh. He was invited on the president's plane to go to Sharm el-Sheikh. He didn't go because of Simchas Torah. You know what? Now we're talking. Show the world our values come first. And you know what? I bet you the Gentiles respected that. They're like, a Jew who actually respects himself. Who ever heard of such a thing?
Rabbi,
I think at the Knesset, every member of the Knesset should wear a yarmulke and show the world we're Jews.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely. This is who we are.
Not everyone that
You're
can
Arab.
That
That way, they don't have to wear it, but every Jew.
Rabbi, building on what Rob Berger said, it's like Israel and the Jews need to do what's best for Israel and the Jews. It doesn't matter who's in Washington or anywhere else. We only have to take care of Israel and the Jews, and we can't worry about that's what they have to worry about.
We're gonna stop apologizing and start living. All right.
Did you see the picture? You may not have seen last night the pictures of Hamas executing
Yes.
the
Yes.
Gazans.
Nobody cares. Nobody
Not
cares.
a word.
No Jews, no news.
Kneeling down.
Yes.
Public
shooting
executions.
them in the head.
And
Like,
you know what the worst part was, Rabbi? You know what the worst part was? For Hamas to execute Gazans, I mean, there's nothing new here. The very disturbing part was that the hundreds or thousands of Gazans around cheered.
Cheered.
Yes.
They cheered.
And what does that tell you about
Yeah.
what's going on?
Well,
up
that's
there?
where their
right.
loyalties
That's
are.
exactly right. And also, Trump gave Hamas the authority to rule at the moment.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Why would he do that?
I can't even imagine how Gaza is going to be demilitarized. What Tony Blair is going to walk in there with his London baton, and he's going to make peace with a cup of coffee and teas. I don't understand this. But maybe it's part of some greater plan. I don't know.
Why gave them the okay to rule Gaza.
But Marty, before we condemn anybody, the Gentiles, Trump, or whatever, we have to look within ourselves and look at ourselves, how divided we are, and how many American Jews that you know that have been, we're going away on vacation, and where did they go? We go to France. Oh, we love Paris. We love England.
I don't go to Europe.
And they've never
I
been
don't
to
travel.
Israel.
Okay, so let me just reach you. Point number 16 from the 20-point plan. Was it 20 or 21 point? I can't tell.
20.
Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza as the ISF establishes control and stability. The IDF will withdraw based on standards, milestones, and timeframes linked to demilitarization that will be agreed upon between the IDF, the ISF, and the guarantors and the United States, with the objective of a secure Gaza that no longer poses a threat to Israel, Egypt, or its citizens. Practically, the IDF will progressively hand over the Gaza territory it occupies to the ISF, according to an agreement they will make with the transitional authority until they are withdrawn completely from Gaza, save for a security perimeter presence that will remain until Gaza is properly secure from any resurgent terror threat, which means all 915 soldiers that have died in vain, all their advances. And I want to just conclude with this point. We cannot put our trust in people. We cannot put our trust in human beings. This is idolatry. To believe in Obama or McCain or Biden or Kamala or Mamdani or in Trump. It's all idolatry. It's all idolatry. You cannot do that. There's only one place that we can turn for our trust. We throw our trust upon God Almighty. It's to God who we pray.
It says it on the dollar bill.
It says it on the dollar bill, and it's time we read it. We read it. What does it say? Money talks. How does it go? Money talks, something walks. Oh, is that it? All right. Anyways, folks, that's
You don't want to hear that. That's the truth.
all right. Somebody's asking, what's the problem with the Zionist? It's a holy word. There's no difference between Jewish and Zionist, right? Or am I wrong? He's not entirely wrong, this person, because the word Zionist does come from Torah. That's Zion. Zion is Zion means it's a Hebrew word. The word has been bastardized. That's the problem. It's been bastardized by the secular atheist communist Zionists. Secular atheist communist Zionists. You know, Theodor Herzl and his followers who tried to establish a nationalistic state which was anti-God. And that's when Zionist became like a very confusing term.
The Constitution never mentions God.
Right, the Constitution never mentions God. So essentially you're correct. The word Zion does come from Torah. But what it's come to mean is a rejection of God, and that's where it becomes like a problem, right? So it is. We're very conflicted. It's a very complicated situation. The bottom line is all we need to know is we're Jews before we're Israelis, right? We're God's chosen people. And if we don't accept the Bible, if we reject the Bible, we're rejecting our title deed to the land.
Right.
If we reject God, we have no claim to the land of Israel.
That's your call.
Yeah.